Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State and Fox News contributor. Great to see you today. Thank you for being in focus.
You know, it's great to be with you this morning.
I always question when people predict things, what they're seeing, what they're forecasting this far out. Is there a sickness politically that Democrats are showing us that you see, yeah, maybe they'll have problems in November?
Well, Harris, I remember when I first lost my mind and ran for Congress back in 2010. It feels very much the same way today. Americans can see that the country's headed in the wrong direction. You see it in the polling, but I can feel it when I'm out just talking to folks all across the country. They can see that we're letting folks come across our border in ways that we've never done in an awfully long time. We have an open southern border. They can see that this administration hasn't delivered on its promises on COVID. They can see that there's store shelves empty all across America. This reminds me of the Soviet Union in some ways, Harris. I mean, literally, no cheese, no celery, no lettuce. The American people can see this, and so I feel optimistic that the American people are going to make good choices in November. I heard Senator Graham and Congressman McCarthy. I'll let them do the political predictions, but I'm confident that people who understand the rule of law, they want crime to go down, they want inflation to go away, will see that they had a pretty good 4 years in the Trump administration and under Republicans when they were leading in Congress. And I think that's likely to be the case. That will be the mood come September and October of this year when people actually start voting.
Yeah, what's interesting about what you're saying, too, is that you don't see that a whole lot can change in the short term. I mean, it's hard to turn inflation around by spending a whole lot more money, but that's what President Biden is talking about doing.
I think that's right. Look, I think it's why you see the progressives dominating on their side. I think the progressives have now come to understand that people don't accept their premises, and so they've got to go talk about things that don't really matter to the American people. And my experience campaigning was that if you talked about things that mattered to Americans all across the country, I was talking mostly to folks in South Central Kansas, when you talk to them about prices for their food, how to make sure their kids could get into school and get a good education, when you talked about those things in a serious way, they often voted with the Republicans because we had the ideas that mattered and would work for them.
Look, real quickly, you made some determinations back in 2010 that you wanted to run. And now you're seeing some Republicans like Senator Ron Johnson look at the landscape and say, wow, it's going to change so much, he's going to jump back in. So he just made that determination as well. Here it is. I'd like to retire, but I think the country is in too much peril. Your quick reaction to that, and we'll move on.
Yes, I had a wonderful life in South Central Kansas. I was running a small manufacturing company, but saw the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, coming. I saw taxes increasing. I saw a real risk to the folks who worked with me at my little manufacturing company in Kansas, and decided I wanted to re-enter public service to try my hand to see if I couldn't help take this country back in the right direction. I think you're seeing people stand up in school board races and sheriff's races all across the country doing exactly that same thing, Harris.
Well, barely a week into his tenure, and New York City's new mayor, Eric Adams, is already facing plenty of criticism. Adams just yesterday stood by his support of a law which allows roughly 800,000 non-citizens to vote in local elections. The bill passed in November, and despite previously expressing concern, the mayor now says he'll defend that law. Let's watch together.
Doesn't the bill just make a mockery of the idea of American citizenship, though? And what do you say to all the people who went through the process, the difficult process of becoming an American citizen?
This is a great opportunity to be a member of this great country. Don't let anything daunt you or take you away from that mission. This legislation is not going to do that. Keep becoming a citizen of this country.
The first elections in which non-American citizens would be allowed to vote slated for 2023. Your take?
Harris, this is bad for New York City, it's bad for New York, it's bad for America. And not only do I think it's inconsistent with our history and the law, I think that the clip that you showed had it exactly right. It denigrates those of us who are citizens, right? Each of us, some of us were blessed to be born here. That privilege to have a blue passport, the blue American passport that I, as Secretary of State, helped deliver to people is a big deal. We ought not give folks who don't have that citizenship, who haven't earned it in the ways that the American people know they need to earn it. We shouldn't let them participate in electing our leaders. That should be reserved for this incredible group of people who are so privileged to be here as citizens of the United States, people who all across the world want to come here. And reminder, too, if you're not an American citizen, it almost always means you're a citizen of some other country. To think that we would allow foreigners to vote in American elections
that's interesting.
without them having U.S. citizenship is really quite something.
Yeah, getting this from you, especially as a former Secretary of State, is really, really eye-opening too. The way that you phrase that. Certainly, you've had so much experience at this, and so glad you were in focus today. Secretary Pompeo, thank you.
Harris, thank you. Have a great day.
You too.